is an actress who is, universally regarded as the best actress of her generation, a true chameleon, who completely changes her entire persona for every single role. How does she manage to achieve this legendary status without ever really cultivating that singular, stable Hollywood star image?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it?
It is. She remains a paradox, intensely private, but at the same time universally recognized.
Well, Meryl Streep has spent, what, 5 decades now just defying the usual path to stardom? Her success isn't just something you feel. It's utterly quantifiable. She's setting records that may never be broken.
Right, we're talking about the numbers here.
The numbers are just staggering. You have 21 Academy Award nominations with 3 wins, then 34 Golden Globe nominations, 8 wins, and 4 Emmy Awards. That count alone makes her the most nominated performer in Oscar history.
And that is an overwhelming stack of accolades for sure, but we aren't here to just, read off the statistics. Our mission in this deep dive is to move beyond the reputation, beyond the numbers. We want to understand the specific, deliberate career choices, the foundational training she received, or maybe more accurately, the training she rejected, and the surprisingly consistent personal philosophy that shaped her entire path.
And we're tracing the journey of Mary Louise Streep, born in Summit, New Jersey back in 1949, and really seeing how her early discipline and emotional resilience prepared her to become the icon we know simply as Meryl. If you look closely at the source material, and we have the foundations of her success were laid not in Hollywood, but in the serious, demanding world of regional and New York theater.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start right there in New Jersey in what we're calling Act 1, the formative years and the stage crucible. So she was raised Presbyterian in Basking Ridge and Bernardsville, which, it's a fairly conventional, affluent American background.
It is, and this very typical suburban upbringing makes her later ability to embody characters from, say, Polish trauma survivors to British prime ministers all the more striking. It really wasn't the affluence that shaped her, though, but the personal environment. A key influence, and she talks about this a lot, was her mother, Mary Wilkinson Streep, who was an artist herself.
Right. Streep often speaks about how her mother was just instrumental in instilling this radical sense of self-confidence and capability in her.
She recalls her mother constantly affirming her, saying things like, "Meryl, you're capable, you're so great, you can do whatever you put your mind to."
Wow.
And that belief in your own internal capability, that you have the resources within yourself to meet any challenge, that became a core pillar of her professional life.
You can really see that thread.
It allowed her to approach these monumental roles others might just shrink from because of the technical or emotional demands, without that paralyzing self-doubt about competence. If you believe you can do it, the only barrier left is the preparation.
And while that confidence seems innate, she also had this early brush with technical mastery that she explicitly rejected. She was selected to sing at age 12, which led to 4 years of really rigorous opera lessons with Estelle Liebling. But she quit.
She did. And this pivot, which on the surface might look like a failure, it taught her a crucial early lesson about artistic integrity.
I think this is a defining moment.
It was a defining moment of artistic integrity that really set the stage for her non-method style decades later. She realized, in her own words, she was singing something she didn't feel and understand.
So she could hit the notes?
She could execute the notes perfectly. She had the technical skill, but the emotional connection was just missing.
So the lesson she took from that, which is detailed in all the sources, was fundamental. Not to do that, to find the thing that I could feel through.
Exactly.
That determination to always find the emotional truth, the feel, rather than just executing the technical skill, whether it's a coloratura aria or a complex accent, that's the engine of her entire performance style. The technical skill has to serve the emotional core.
Absolutely. And it's also worth noting the contrast of her high school life. She was the quintessential all-American girl, a cheerleader for the Bernards High School Mountaineers. And she was chosen as homecoming queen.
She didn't have that standard artsy outsider backstory at all.
Not at all. She could fit in everywhere, which is, ironically, the very skill she later used to disappear into thousands of different characters.
That ability to be, simultaneously technically dedicated and completely approachable, that perfect blend, it defined her academic path, too. The serious dedication really began at Vassar College. She credits acting in a production of Miss Julie in 1969 with sparking her serious interest in the dramatic arts.
And this is where that self-starter mentality really kicks in. Her drama professor, Clinton J. Atkinson, he famously noted, "I don't think anyone ever taught Meryl acting. She really taught herself."
That's quite a statement.
It is. She finished her A.B. in drama, cum laude, in 1971. But that was just the beginning of what sounds like an utterly brutal period of intense education.
She immediately moved on to get her MFA in drama from the Yale School of Drama in 1975. And we really need to dwell on this period because it explains so much about her deep commitment to work and her eventual rejection of those formalized acting techniques.
The sources detail an intense, just unrelenting workload. She was simultaneously enrolled as a visiting student at Dartmouth in 1970, and she later received an honorary doctorate from them in 1981, which just shows her commitment to academic excellence. But at Yale, she was constantly hustling.
We're talking about working as a waitress and a typist just to pay her tuition fees. I mean, can you imagine that level of dedication, working 2 jobs just to be allowed to participate in what was an even more demanding job, acting, where she was in over a dozen stage productions every single year?
That heavy workload didn't just cause mental stress, it took a physical toll, a serious one. She developed ulcers, and the sheer exhaustion drove her so close to the breaking point that she seriously contemplated quitting acting entirely to study law.
Wow, we nearly lost Meryl Streep to the legal profession.
We did, because she was literally working herself sick to learn her craft.
It makes you realize that the foundation of her chameleon reputation isn't some effortless genius. It's a terrifying, almost fanatical work ethic forged under extreme pressure.
And that training period at Yale also provided key insights into her enduring skepticism toward the more rigid schools of method acting. She played every conceivable role, from Shakespearean heroines like Helena in A Midsummer Night's Dream to this difficult, deeply unattractive role as an 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair. She was stretching her instrument purely through the volume of performance.
This brings us to a crucial conceptual clarification we need to make. The source material states that she disapproved of a professor teaching the emotional recall technique by prying into students' personal lives. She called it obnoxious. What exactly is emotional recall, and why did she find it so, well, antithetical to her own process?
Emotional recall is it's a cornerstone of certain mid-20th century method acting schools. It requires the actor to deliberately conjure a personal memory that mirrors the emotion required by the scene. So if the character is experiencing grief, the actor attempts to recall a moment of intense personal grief from their own life to generate authentic tears or sadness.
So the idea is that you're essentially weaponizing your own past trauma or emotion to create the present performance.
Exactly. And for Streep, forcing that kind of personal exposure, especially having a professor mandate that students delve into their private lives and share those painful, vulnerable memories, it felt intrusive, exploitative, and ultimately counterproductive.
I can see that.
She viewed it as obnoxious because it prioritized personal pathology over the intellectual and emotional demands of the script itself.
It's messy. It ties the quality of your acting to the depth of your personal misery, rather than to your ability to imagine the character's misery.
Right, and this rejection perfectly aligns with her earlier epiphany from her opera lessons. She needed to find a thing she could feel through. Not a thing she could excavate from her personal life and drag onto the stage, but something she could channel by immersing herself fully in the character's circumstances.
So it's about empathy, not memory.
This emphasis on external preparation, observation, and internal channeling, not personal pathology, that became the Streep method.
So after this crucible at Yale, she moves to New York City in 1975 and goes straight into working with Joseph Papp's Public Theater. I mean, this wasn't minor regional theater. This was the epicenter of serious American dramatic art. This period was the final crucible before Hollywood discovered her.
The transition was seamless. From a student of volume to a professional of volume. She made her debut in Trelawney of the Wells in 1975, alongside future stars like Mandy Patinkin and John Lithgow. Her first year in New York, she took on 5 more roles, including major New York Shakespeare Festival productions.
We're talking Henry V, The Taming of the Shrew, where she was opposite Raoul Julia and Measure for Measure, where she starred opposite Sam Waterston and, fatefully, John Cazale.
And we absolutely must acknowledge the importance of that relationship with Cazale. Their personal and professional partnership began during this intensive stage period, and it lasted until his death just 3 years later.
Her talent wasn't latent. It was immediately obvious to the theater establishment. She received an Obie Award and, significantly, a Tony Award nomination for Best Featured Actress in a play for the 1976 double bill of Tennessee Williams' 27 Wagons Full of Cotton and Arthur Miller's A Memory of Two Mondays.
This point is so critical for you, the listener, to understand. By 1976, Meryl Streep was an established, critically lauded theater professional. She was already within the elite circle of serious American drama.
Right.
The move to film wasn't a necessary stepping stone for her. It was an accidental side road.
That sets up our shift into Act Two perfectly. Film transition and rapid ascent. Because despite the Tony nomination and all the stage success, film was not her aspiration. She was succeeding exactly where she wanted to be.
She was content on the stage. The change in perspective she credits to seeing Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver in 1976. That film made her realize the potential for raw, modern authenticity in cinema.
Right. She thought, that's the kind of actor I want to be when I grow up.
Exactly.
Ugh.
But her actual introduction to the film industry was a classic, brutally humbling Hollywood moment. We're talking about the infamous audition for Dino De Laurentiis' 1976 remake of King Kong.
The story is incredible.
This anecdote highlights the chasm between the respectful, character-driven world of Joseph Tapp's theater and the image-obsessed, often sexist world of commercial cinema. Streep walks in, this highly educated, Tony-nominated actress, and De Laurentiis dismisses her instantly.
And he does it in Italian, turning to his son and calling her ugly, thinking she couldn't possibly understand.
But Streep, who had been studying languages as part of her just general intellectual curiosity, understood every single word.
And her reply, in flawless Italian, was the ultimate statement of self-possession and defiance. I'm very sorry that I'm not as beautiful as I should be, but, this is it. This is what you get.
It wasn't a defensive reaction, was it? It was a clear articulation of her value proposition. She was offering her talent and her truth, not her conventional beauty.
What an incredible moment. It's an early signal that she was going to play by her own rules. Despite that fire, her actual film debut in Julia in 1977 was a small role, and she was, to use her word, horrified.
She was horrified by the editing process. After years on the stage where the performance is inviolable, she watched as her scenes were cut and her dialogue was transposed into other, later scenes, distorting her original choices. She felt completely disempowered by the process.
So the result of her first foray into cinema was a classic stage actor's lament. She vowed, no more movies, I hate this business. She wanted the control and integrity of the theater back.
A difficult start, indeed. But fate, driven largely by tragedy and a profound personal commitment, kept her in the frame. The years 1978 and 1979 were arguably the most emotionally intense, professionally significant, and creatively formative of her life. They were a true, emotional, and critical crucible.
Let's look at The Deer Hunter in 1978. It was the director of The Cherry Orchard, where she had starred, who mentioned her to Robert De Niro. And De Niro, remembering his admiration for her stage work, suggested her for the role of his girlfriend.
And here's where the personal motivation completely trumps the professional. She took the role of vague, stock girlfriend, as the source notes, primarily because it allowed her to remain near John Cazale, who had been diagnosed with lung cancer.
It was a choice born of necessity and love, not some strategic career move.
Not at all. And the film earned her her first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, a huge professional validation arising directly from a deeply personal crisis.
This period also included the miniseries Holocaust in 1978, where she played a German woman married to a Jewish artist. She was remarkably candid about this, admitting she took the role specifically for financial gain because she needed money to help care for Cazale.
She was still fighting the financial battles of a working artist.
Yet she won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress for that performance. She's achieving immense artistic and commercial validation while her private world was just collapsing.
The emotional toll was staggering. She traveled to Germany and Austria for filming Holocaust. Upon her return, she found Cazale's illness had progressed significantly. She nursed him, balancing the duties of a caregiver with the demands of an ascending professional until his death in March 1978.
That period, the intense grief combined with the sudden, almost accidental emergence of stardom, it must have forged her highly focused, internal, and guarded approach to the work and her life from then on.
I think so. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the role immediately following Cazale's death, Kramer vs. Kramer in 1979, truly highlights her early commitment to character depth and marked her transition from supporting actor to an influential artistic force in Hollywood.
That film, cast opposite Dustin Hoffman, could have been straightforward melodrama. But Streep challenged the material, and she challenged the industry's default portrayal of women. She insisted the initial script portrayed Joanna, the divorcing wife who leaves her family, as too evil and a simplistic villain.
She felt the script was completely unrepresentative of the complex emotional reality faced by real women undergoing marriage breakdown and custody battles.
This wasn't about fame for her, this was about truth.
And she successfully argued her case. The director, Robert Benton, agreed to revise the script, acknowledging her insight. Furthermore, Benton gave her the extraordinary liberty, especially for an actress with a relatively short film tenure, of writing her own dialogue in two key defining scenes for her character.
That is an unbelievable display of power and foresight so early in her film career. It speaks volumes about her intellectual grasp of character and her willingness to advocate for emotional truth. It set a precedent that Hollywood needed to listen to her interpretation of women's lives.
Indeed. And it was not always harmonious. It's well documented that her dedication and insistence on truth led to friction with Dustin Hoffman. While he later respected her work ethic immensely, describing her as extraordinarily hardworking to the extent that she's obsessive, the relationship was tense during filming.
She was not there to make friends. She was there to honor the character's truth.
The success of Kramer vs. Kramer was immense. She won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar, capping off a phenomenal year where she also garnered awards from the Los Angeles Film Critics Association, the National Board of Review, and the National Society of Film Critics for her collective work that year.
And of course, the enduring anecdote. She famously left the Oscar statue in the ladies' room afterward.
Right. Whether it was accidental carelessness or maybe a subtle rejection of the pedestal that stardom placed her on, it certainly symbolizes her ongoing discomfort with the sheer stardom the role brought. She saw herself as a working actor, not a celebrity commodity.
She fully transitioned to a leading lady in the early 1980s. By 1980, the media had caught up. Newsweek featured her on the cover with the headline, "A Star for the 80s."
A packaging she immediately resisted, calling the coverage excessive hype. She was already wary of how the media attempted to simplify her complexity.
Her first unequivocal leading film role was The French Lieutenant's Woman in 1981, where she demonstrated her technical genius by developing a flawless English accent.
Yet, even with this technical success, we see the persistence of her internal self-doubt, or perhaps the lingering impact of that King Kong audition. She felt like a misfit for the part, wishing she were more beautiful.
It's a fascinating vulnerability. Despite the immense talent, she was working in an industry that still prized those very conventional standards. Nevertheless, the world recognized the performance, and she won a BAFTA for Best Actress.
And then came Sophie's Choice in 1982. The defining role that solidified her status, not just as a star, but as a generational talent. She was so determined to get this part, which had initially been written for Ursula Andress.
Wow, Ursula Andress. That highlights the industry's initial confusion over who could embody such deep historical pain.
Her preparation for Sophie's Choice was exhaustive. She mastered the Polish accent and committed fully to the role of a Holocaust survivor. The emotional intensity was so high that the core choice scene, where she is forced to choose which of her children would be gassed, was filmed in one take.
One take.
She refused to do it again, finding it too emotionally exhausting to repeat. That speaks to the sheer volume of emotional truth she had to channel.
Roger Ebert's critique really summarizes the achievement. He praised her performance as astonishing and yet one of the most unaffected and natural performances I can imagine.
She had found the emotional core and the technical execution, and she won her second Academy Award, her first for Best Actress.
That triumph brings us into Act 3, where her versatility became both her defining characteristic and, strangely, a source of critical scrutiny. This is the phase of the chameleon and the critics.
The versatility was relentless. In 1983, she took on her first non-fictional character, the nuclear whistleblower Karen Silkwood. Her preparation involved meeting numerous people close to the real-life figure. She discovered, as is often the case with complex real people, that each witness saw a different, sometimes contradictory aspect of Karen's personality.
So how did she reconcile those conflicting perspectives?
Well, her approach was highly intellectual and internal. She recognized that trying to turn myself into Karen would be impossible, so instead she sought to understand her from the inside. It was about synthesizing the truth rather than mimicking the external details.
This internal focus set the stage for Out of Africa in 1985, playing the Danish writer Karen Blixen. This film established her as a global Hollywood superstar, despite some initial resistance from director Sidney Pollack.
Pollack had famously expressed doubts about her sexiness for the role, which reflects that entrenched industry view that serious dramatic actresses couldn't also be romantic leads. But Streep impressed him with her directness and her complete lack of pretense.
I read that Pollack later recounted being impressed by her immediate honesty, calling her so direct, so honest, so without bullshit. She earned yet another Oscar nomination, and the film won Best Picture.
But here's where the critical dynamic becomes complex. Her immense success, coupled with her now reported $4 million per picture salary, an astronomical figure for the time, especially for a female actor, led to a notable critical backlash.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Streep's mastery of accents became her defining hallmark, yet some critics interpreted it not as genius, but as a sign of emotional coldness.
It's a fascinating piece of film criticism history. The argument was that her performance was so technically perfect, so focused on the external details, the accent, the posture, the transformation, that you could literally see her acting. They felt she was prioritizing technical finesse over spontaneous, raw emotion.
So the implication was that by disappearing into a character, she failed to bring Meryl Streep's personality to the screen. She was too much of a vessel, too perfect a copy.
Exactly. The chameleon label, which was intended as a compliment, also carried a subtle sting of critique. She was deemed too proficient, too much of a technician. But if you look at the catalog of roles, the skill required to jump between Danish, flawless British RP, Italian, Southern American, Minnesota, upstate New York, and that heavy Bronx accent in doubt. It's just astonishing.
It's an intellectual marathon that she makes look easy.
And when asked how she achieves these varying accents, the source gives us that perfect minimalist Streep answer. She delivered it in a reportedly perfect Belfast accent. I listen.
I listen. That three-word reply encapsulates her whole process: observation and internalization. She rejects the emotional recall of the method and instead commits to pure auditory and psychological observation.
The feeling comes not from a memory of personal pain, but from fully hearing and embodying the sound and rhythm of a different person's life.
She continued to pursue challenging roles even under this technical scrutiny, notably winning the Australian Film Institute Award and the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Actress for Evil Angels in 1988, where she tackled the complicated Australian accent for Lindy Chamberlain.
That role required a complex synthesis, mixing American and Australian English as the character required. But despite these continuous artistic wins, the late 1980s and 1990s brought what biographer Karen Hollinger called a downturn in her popularity and commercial fluctuations. This wasn't necessarily a personal failure, but an industry failure.
What was the core dilemma of that period? Why did the critics sour on her, and why did the commercial successes dry up for a while?
Hollinger attributed the downturn partly to critics simply reacting negatively to her attempts at comedy films like She-Devil in 1989, which were genre shifts they felt didn't suit her dramatic gravitas. But the much more significant factor was the widespread issue of ageism.
Ah, yes.
The lack of robust, interesting roles available to actresses once they hit their 40s. Hollywood simply stopped writing complicated parts for middle-aged women.
And Streep herself contributed to limiting her pool of options by prioritizing her personal life. She admitted that she limited options by preferring to work close to her family in Los Angeles.
Which is a profound choice. She prioritized stability for her growing family over chasing every available high-profile role shot overseas. She consciously put a ceiling on her professional ambition to maintain her private equilibrium.
She did try the big-budget comedy route, though, most notably with Death Becomes Her in 1992. That 7-month shoot was the longest of her career, and while it was a commercial success, she personally disliked the technical demands.
She really disliked filming the heavy special effects needed for that film. The complex prosthetics, the green screens, the lengthy technical setups. She famously vowed never to do a film with heavy special effects again. She needed the work to be grounded in character-driven realism, not technical spectacle.
And this period wasn't just about managing her own career. She was actively using her platform to advocate for change. In 1990, she keynoted the Screen Actors Guild National Women's Conference.
She was a vocal critic of the industry's practices, emphasizing the tangible decline in work opportunities and pay parity for women in Hollywood. She saw the problem clearly because she was living it, despite her incredible status.
That advocacy and dedication to portraying complicated female lives really set the stage for a crucial mid-career resurgence. The Bridges of Madison County in 1995, directed by Clint Eastwood. It was a massive box office hit, grossing $70 million in the U.S., but it was also a very strategic role choice for her.
It was a conscious choice to reclaim her dramatic romantic viability. She was open about disliking the source novel, but she recognized the script offered a rare opportunity for an actress her age to play a nuanced romantic lead.
So how did she approach the character of Francesca, who was Italian-American and wrestling with this late-life regret?
She went back to her roots in deep preparation. She gained weight for the part, rejecting the Hollywood expectation of perpetual thinness, and sought inspiration from classic Italian screen goddesses, the ones who embodied emotional depth over physical perfection, like Sophia Loren and Anna Magnani.
This role was pivotal. It positioned her, according to the sources, as arguably the first middle-aged actress to be taken seriously by Hollywood as a romantic heroine in that era. It proved that commercial success didn't require her to abandon depth or integrity.
And that control over her instrument continued, even in dramatic roles later in the decade, like Music of the Heart in 1999, where she played Roberta Quaspari, a violin teacher in Harlem. Roger Ebert made a fascinating observation about this performance.
Right. He noted that her performance utilized a voice with a certain flat quality, suggesting that her command over regional American speaking styles and a lack of accent was as critical and controlled as her command of foreign accents.
It wasn't just the Polish or the Danish that required mastery. It was the ability to suppress the natural timbre and rhythm of Meryl Streep and adopt the precise, unadorned speech of a middle-class American woman. She earned another Oscar nomination for Music of the Heart, demonstrating that the ups and downs of the 90s hadn't diminished her artistic standing at all.
That brings us firmly into Act 4, which we can really call her second golden age, starting in the 2000s, characterized by a smart selection of roles across film, television, and eventually streaming.
The foundation for this resurgence was laid by strategically returning to her roots. In 2001, she played Arkadina in Chekhov's The Seagull at the Public Theater, her first stage role in over 20 years. It was a statement. She was still the dedicated theater artist at heart.
Then came a series of roles that garnered immediate acclaim and showcased her ability to blend quirkiness with dramatic weight. Adaptation. In 2002, where she played real-life journalist Susan Orlean, earned her fourth Golden Globe. Critics praised her impish composure, showing she could be playful and intense at the same time.
This immediately escalated into her partnership with HBO and director Mike Nichols for the miniseries Angels in America in 2003. She took on a monumental challenge, playing 4 different roles within the miniseries.
4 roles. That versatility earned her second Emmy and 5th Golden Globe, proving she could dominate prestigious long-form television as effectively as film or stage. It established her as an actor who prioritized the material, regardless of the medium.
But the film that truly defined her global commercial success in the new century was The Devil Wears Prada in 2006. Miranda Priestley became an instant cultural reference point.
That commercial success was just undeniable. Playing Miranda Priestley earned her a record-setting 14th Oscar bid, and the film grossed over $326 million worldwide, making it her biggest hit up to that point. This showed she could command the box office with a character that was complex, terrifying, and funny all at once.
What's remarkable is that she didn't just chase that commercial model. The era between 2008 and 2011 became her star vehicle decade, defined by an unprecedented display of range. It began with the massive smash hit Mamma Mia in 2008.
Which became her highest-grossing film to date, earning over $600 million. It solidified her ability to front a major musical blockbuster, and you could tell she was just enjoying herself. Her rendition of the title song even peaked at number 8 on the Portuguese music charts.
But the genius lies in the immediate juxtaposition. In the very same year, 2008, she delivered the intense drama-dap. She went directly from singing ABBA on a Greek island to embodying the rigid, severe Catholic authority of Sister Aloysius.
And again, she employed that famous accent work, using a heavy Bronx accent for the role, creating a character critics described as the scariest nun of all time. It's an amazing study in contrast, showing she could use massive commercial success to fund her ability to take on difficult dramatic roles without pressure.
The next year, 2009, she proved she can inhabit real-life figures with humor and warmth, playing Julia Child in Julie and Julia. She won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy for that role, and again, the preparation was paramount.
Her portrayal of Julia Child was described as quite possibly the biggest performance of her career. She drew on her own experience, understanding the nuances of a late bloomer who found massive success later in life. That warm, lived-in truth led directly to her third Oscar win for another biographical role, Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady in 2011.
The preparation for Thatcher was meticulous. She not only focused on the voice and the mannerisms, but researched the political context, attending a session of the House of Commons to observe British members of Parliament in action and understand the environment Thatcher operated in.
And her portrayal was so powerful and politically charged that it generated immediate controversy, drawing criticism from Thatcher's former advisors who called it inaccurate and biased.
It showed that her artistic interpretation had significant political weight. Her response to the criticism was handled with intellectual grace. Following Thatcher's death, Streep issued a formal statement praising her personal strength and grit, while also ensuring balance by mentioning her hard-nosed fiscal measures and hands-off approach to financial regulation.
She was impartial, reporting on the complexity of the figure, not simply endorsing her politics.
The accolades continued throughout the 2010s. She was nominated for Oscars for August, Osage County in 2013, and Florence Foster Jenkins in 2016, where she won the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Actress in a Comedy for playing the famously terrible yet dedicated opera singer.
Her late career film choices also showcased her influence, notably in The Post in 2017, where she played Katharine Graham, the first American female newspaper publisher, earning her 21st record-breaking Oscar nomination.
Film critics were effusive about this role, recognizing the weight of her performance. Manohla Dargis noted that Streep created an acutely moving portrait of a woman who, in liberating herself, helps instigate a revolution. That theme of female liberation and empowerment, even when she isn't playing a traditional feminist, is a recurring connection.
And she fully embraced the streaming and television renaissance, moving strategically to platforms that prioritized quality writing. The most striking example of her faith in high-caliber material came with Big Little Lies in 2019.
She accepted the role of Mary Louise Wright, the mother-in-law in the second season, without even reading the script. That's a level of trust in the writers and producers that very few actors can command.
The character was literally named Mary Louise after Streep's legal name, a clear sign of the respect she commanded on set. Critics found her performance delicious and wily, the embodiment of a passive-aggressive granny.
She continued the streaming focus, playing a comical U.S. president in Netflix's Don't Look Up in 2021, and most recently, the struggling actress Loretta Durkin in Hulu's Only Murders in the Building from 2023 to 2024.
For Only Murders, she won a Critics' Choice Television Award. The Guardian noted that Streep, unsurprisingly, plays Loretta beautifully, truly tapping into the agony of a woman who's faced a lifetime of rejection but somehow kept her dream alive. Even in comedy, she finds the deep emotional truth.
So what does this all mean? She's clearly not slowing down.
Not at all. With scheduled releases in 2026, including a voice role as Queen Butterfly in Pixar's Hoppers and reprising Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada 2, plus she's set to play Joni Mitchell in The Present Day in Cameron Crowe's upcoming biopic announced in August 2025.
Her sheer longevity and adaptability across mediums, from Joseph Pabst Regional Theater in the 70s to major streaming television in the 2020s, make her career a foundational study in artistic endurance and strategic evolution.
Now we have to address the foundation of her success. The Streep method, or, the lack thereof. For someone so identified with transformation, she consistently insists she doesn't have a specific technique or defined method.
That's the key paradox we started with. She has stated repeatedly that she cannot articulate her practice, having realized early on that formalized emotional recall methods were obnoxious. She believes her acting is rooted in two things: loving the initial script and being obsessively prepared.
I come ready and I don't want to screw around and waste the first 10 takes. That quote speaks volumes about her professionalism and her rejection of the idea that good acting must be spontaneous or derived from emotional chaos.
Director Mike Nichols, who worked with her several times, quantified the sheer power of her preparation. He said that watching her act could improve a co-star by 1,000% purely by watching her.
Wow.
Her commitment forces everyone else on set to raise their game, not just to match her, but to keep up with the elevated standards she sets.
And her perspective on acting is deeply philosophical. She elevates the act of performing far beyond mere entertainment. She articulated her definition so clearly. Pretending is not just play. Pretending is imagined possibility. Pretending or acting is a very valuable life skill, and we all do it, all the time.
She sees acting as an active form of empathy and imagination, a critical human skill used for survival, for understanding others, and for navigating complex social realities. When she embodies a character, she is exploring an imagined possibility of the human experience, which is why her work often feels so fundamentally truthful.
Her recognition is genuinely unprecedented. It's a reflection of both her output and her impact. Let's just run down some of the key milestones that confirm her place in history.
The competitive records speak for themselves. She holds the record as the most Academy Award-nominated performer in history, with 21 total nominations. She is one of only 3 performers, alongside Ingrid Bergman and Jack Nicholson, to win 3 acting Oscars across both categories.
And beyond the competitive arena, the list of honorary awards just reads like a history of modern cinema. An honorary Caesar in 2003, the AFI Life Achievement Award in 2004, the Kennedy Center Honor in 2011.
The honorary Golden Bear in 2012, the Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2017, and the honorary Palme d'Or in 2024.
And the presidential recognition is the ultimate confirmation of her cultural status. She received the National Medal of Arts from Barack Obama in 2010 and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2014.
And the citation for the Medal of Freedom praised her unparalleled ability to portray a wide range of roles and attract an audience that has only grown over time, portraying characters who embody the full range of the human experience.
Her advocacy and political beliefs are equally prominent, even if she always maintains a careful distance from political partisanship in her art. She has described herself politically as part of the American left, supporting Hillary Clinton at the 2016 Democratic National Convention.
The 2017 Golden Globes acceptance speech for the Cecil B. DeMille Award became a massive cultural and political flashpoint. In that speech, she implicitly criticized President-elect Donald Trump for mocking a disabled reporter, Serge Kovaleski. She didn't name him, but she lamented the dangerous normalization of bullying when practiced by someone who outranked him in privilege, power, and the capacity to fight back.
This moment was so crucial because the chameleon, the actor who always disappears, was finally using her platform to speak plainly, directly, and critically.
And the response from Trump, calling her one of the most overrated actresses in Hollywood, only amplified the visibility and significance of her stance, cementing the speech as a defining moment in modern celebrity activism and political commentary.
When asked about her identity, she gave a thoughtful, balanced response in 2015, stating that she doesn't strictly define herself as a feminist. She said, "I am a humanist. I am for nice, easy balance."
That humanism is evident in her profound, concrete financial support for artistic and advocacy causes. She donated her entire $1 million fee for the Iron Lady money earned from depicting a politically conservative figure to the National Women's History Museum.
She also donated $1 million to the Public Theater, returning support to the stage world that forged her.
And she actively works to solve the structural problems she faced in the 90s. She funded the Writers' Lab, a screenwriters' lab specifically for female screenwriters over 40 years old, which is noted as the only one of its kind globally. She's putting her money and influence into creating the roles that Hollywood wasn't writing for women of substance and age.
This commitment to human dignity and empowerment is rooted in her core beliefs, which seem inextricably linked to the early trauma of losing John Cazale. She has expressed a lack of religious belief, stating she doesn't believe in the power of prayer or things would have been avoided that have happened that are awful.
That rejection of external or divine intervention seems to have forced her focus internally, requiring her to find meaning and consolation purely in human effort.
Precisely. When asked where she draws comfort in the face of aging and death, she replied, "I have a belief, I guess, in the power of the aggregate human attempt the best of ourselves. In love and hope and optimism, the magic things that seem inexplicable."
That phrase, the aggregate human attempt, is the philosophical heart of her career. Her dedication to portraying every type of woman, every accent, every painful or triumphant human experience, it becomes a form of spiritual inquiry, an investigation into the best of ourselves.
And finally, a look at her personal life reveals a conscious, decades-long attempt to maintain stability. 6 months after the death of John Cazale, she married sculptor Don Gummer in 1978. They raised 4 children, Henry Wolfe, Mamie, Grace, and Louisa Jacobson, and consciously prioritized a normal private life away from the Hollywood glare.
They moved the family back to Connecticut even when it limited her career options in the 90s.
That dedication to privacy was so central to her ability to disappear into her work. She wasn't constantly selling her own image. However, We should note the recent public report in 2023 stating that Streep and Gummer had been separated for more than 6 years, since 2017, confirming that even the most stable foundation can undergo transformation.
That separation underscores the human reality behind the icon. She maintained a stable professional and personal boundary for decades, a choice that undoubtedly fueled her artistic freedom.
So Meryl Streep's unparalleled legacy rests not on the construction of a singular, marketable Hollywood persona, the standard for most legends, but rather on her relentless, almost obsessive commitment to embodying diverse and often difficult characters.
All of it supported by immense preparation, technical mastery, and that clear boundary between her public work and her intensely guarded private life.
Her genius truly lies in that transformation, underpinned by a deep humanistic empathy. Film critic Molly Haskell once observed that none of Streep's heroines are feminists, strictly speaking, yet they uncannily embody various cross-currents of experience for women over the past 5 decades.
She is the ultimate vessel for portraying the complex, messy, unpolished truth of the female experience because she doesn't judge the women she plays. She simply channels them.
Let's leave you with this final provocative thought, drawing directly from her core beliefs. Considering that Streep's early life trauma, the death of her partner John Cazale, led her to believe that she couldn't rely on prayer or external solace, how much of her ability to access and convey profound human emotion on screen stems from her complete internal focus on the aggregate human attempt?
That love and hope and optimism that she believes is inexplicable magic.
Does Meryl Streep's art represent a uniquely humanistic form of finding meaning where doctrine fails? Think about that commitment to self-reliance and empathy next time you witness one of her perfect transformations.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll catch you next time.